Here we go. All right, very good. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our town hall today. I am super excited to be joined by my special guest who, by accident and wasn't planned, but it's awesome. Also in Cobalt Blue today, David Williams. Say hi to everybody, David.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, hey, so that's awesome. I'm going to introduce him in just a second. While you guys are coming in and getting situated and getting your caffeine, I'm going to kick things off today with a quick little story. Some point in the last few days, I thought about my trip to Anchorage, Alaska, which was almost to the day 3 years ago, this same time of year. I went to Anchorage to speak to two groups there. I was speaking to the American Marketing Association there and also the Home Builders Association. And what I didn't know when I landed in Anchorage, Alaska, was that there are only 3 cell phone carriers in the state of Alaska. And the cell phone carrier that I had at that time was not one of them. So I found myself very disoriented. Here I am, a girl from Orlando, Florida. It was still heavily snowing that time of year. So to me, it was like a blizzard was happening. I had a rental car and I was there 5 or 6 days, and I had to get myself around to multiple locations, to multiple speaking engagements, some sightseeing, the whole thing. And you think, okay, so you don't have your cell phone, fine, you'll make calls from the hotel. Well, what do you need when you're in Anchorage, Alaska for the first time driving yourself in a rental car? You need GPS. Especially if you're not very good with directions, which people know that I am extremely directionally challenged. So I found myself in a foreign place to me in very unfamiliar weather conditions, driving a rental car with no GPS. It was like I had suddenly been thrown back into 1985 by accident. So every day at the beginning of the day from the hotel computer and printer, I would go to Google Maps and I would print out printed directions step by step. And I would try to drive from printed directions, David, like a la AKA MapQuest back in the day, right? And here I am driving all over this place with what are called, they have city moose in downtown Anchorage, Alaska. They're moose that are the size of an SUV or a minivan, no kidding. And it's important that you do not feed the city moose. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be feeding the city moose. That's not a problem. But it occurred to me this past week, it was quite an adventure. I got this rental car stuck in a snowbank and a bunch of people had to push me out. It was scary and fun and an amazing. At one point, I'm looking at a glacier and it was so incredible and so beautiful. I started bawling because it was such a sight to behold. Like, it was such a roller coaster up, down, and around. And I think of it very fondly when I think of the trip. But what I also think about was it was completely uncharted territory for me. And that really is where we've been in the last 3 or 4 weeks, right? So this little trip to Alaska really made me think about what we've been through as a group and how this town hall was born and why we're doing it and the things we're doing. And we are selling new homes in the middle of a pandemic, literally in uncharted territory, like we've been thrown back to 1985 without a GPS, except that we actually are being asked to do even more technology than we've ever done before. And I thought it was incredible and amazing when I asked you guys in the group yesterday to write in some good news. Some of you wrote in that you had filmed a video for the very first time and pushed the darn button like we talked about last week. So this week with David, my goal for our conversation is, last week we did video. This week I want to do photos, really just good photos. And I want to talk about that because I believe that if you are proactive with your communication with your clients that are currently under contract, whose homes are at some stage of construction, that you can really protect your backlog by being more proactive with communicating with them. And you can make that more engaging if you do it using photos. So David's here, and I'm gonna have to put my glasses on so I could see my notes, right? But just to tell you a little bit about him, he's based here in Raleigh. He's my personal corporate headshot photographer. He does all of my shots and does an amazing job with them. But more than that, he's really a corporate photographer. David, you've been in business since what, the 80s, I think ish, right?
Well, I started in high school in Wake County in 1982.
Oh
So
my goodness.
yeah, I started. So
Oh
when you
my
said
goodness.
85, I could like that was I can remember that year quite well.
Right, right. So he's a super humble guy and wouldn't probably brag and tell you this himself, but when I went on his website and clicked on the client list, the corporate names are names like Amazon, Starbucks, Marriott, Dell, Verizon. I mean, this, he works with the top of the top in the corporate world, and also does a lot of commercial real estate. And the other thing about David that makes him the perfect guest for today is he's a really good marketer. Because it's one thing to be a photographer, right, David? It's one thing to be good with your camera, but building a business, keeping a business, marketing a business, that's something different.
Yeah, that's one of the things with the creative world is not all creatives, can market. And so that's one of the things that I think I've been blessed to do. I tell people a lot of times that I enjoy the marketing side as much almost as I do the photography side. So I do have a
Yeah.
passion for the communication and marketing piece of it.
Yeah, and it shows in your business and how successful you've been. So, all right, so we're going to start off with some really kind of basic stuff. Again, the idea here, folks, is to help you take better DIY photos with your mobile phone. I mean, I'm sure he can go into more advanced equipment if you want that, but we're not trying to turn you into professional photographers, but we do want to help you communicate in the most visually stunning way that you possibly can right now, because that's the main source of engagement you have, are those things. So talk to us, David, about taking pictures with our phone, how to take good pictures. What are some things that we need to be aware of? I've got here on my checklist things like time of day, how to make sure the photos are crisp. Like a lot of times when I get a photo from somebody's phone, it's like really blurry. What's up with that? Lighting, et cetera, flash, no flash. Give us some of your tips on that.
Okay, and feel free to stop me at any time because I'm passionate about what I do. So I'm going to dive in. A lot of people, as a photographer, I shoot the majority of my images landscape style, horizontal style. And there's a reason for that. And there are times when it makes sense to shoot portrait style or to shoot like this. But a lot of times, because we hold our phones and talk on it like this, we will have a tendency to shoot a lot of photos like this. Not that there's a perfect right or wrong answer, but I want to share why the horizontal mode is so important, because you can get the best of both worlds when it comes to cropping. You can crop that horizontal landscape image into a square. You can crop it into a portrait style. So by shooting horizontal or landscape, it allows you to be able to crop the images a lot of times a lot more effective. As far as using flash, one of the things that if you're shooting inside a home, for the most part, your flash on your camera is probably not going to come on. But if you're in a dark trying to photograph a small closet, then the flash, the light may come on. And I can tell you that as a general rule, it's not a good looking image when the light on the phone comes on. You're typically you're going to want to have enough light to make the phone do what it's supposed to do, because the flash is just not really meant to operate to a high level of quality when you're using a phone. So what you're going to want to do if you're trying to photograph something like a closet is obviously open up as many windows in the house and get as much other light as you can. You mentioned about blurry and like how can my phone give me a blurry image? Well, a lot of people don't realize that even though phones will take good images in low light, they are still a lot of times processing it somewhat like the cameras that I use, meaning that if I'm shooting in low light with a professional camera, I'm having to use a flash, which is a lot different than a phone flash, or I'm having to put it on a tripod and secure the camera somehow. A lot of times the functionality is with the higher end cameras, you can still handhold, but if you've got motion, then it's going to be blurred. But a lot of people don't realize that a lot of times phones, when you're in low light and you press a button, there's a couple things that's going to happen. One, they can be blurry because of the slowness of the built-in system from the phone. But the other thing that's probably maybe even worse at times than the blurriness is what is called noise. In the digital age, it's called noise. I started in the film days, it was called grain. So when you look at a low light image, and it just looks like it's got a lot of pixel dots in it, which is known as noise, then that's what happens. That's why the professional images, you know, of a home at night, for example, may look so much better with a professional camera, or, you know, on a camera on a tripod. You may own your own DSLR or mirrorless camera that you can sit on a tripod, but even though the image will look okay with a phone, you're going to still pick up that digital noise in there if you don't have enough light. In just a moment, and I'm going to take a breath here and turn it back over to you, but in just a moment, when you mentioned time of day, I'm going to get into an app that will help you figure out the sun position. But as far as a general rule, a good time of day is morning light. If you know anything about photography, you've probably heard morning light, morning light, morning light, because as a general rule, morning light is a pretty nice light to be shooting in. High noon, the sun's straight up above you, it's going to cause a lot of craziness at times. And then later in the day, you've got twilight. You've got stuff like right before the sun setting, which can be another time of day that's good to photograph a home. So you're going to want to be aware of the position of the sun and where you're at related to the position of the sun. And I'll get into that in just a moment when we start talking about figuring out the position of the sun through an app, and then where you should position yourself. Because if you can schedule a time of day, that app is helpful to know that, hey, if I come back, the sun is going to be to my left or to my right or above me or behind me at whatever time I'm thinking about coming back.
Yeah. I want to circle back on that orientation of the landscape of holding your phone horizontally versus vertically, because I want you guys, I'm going to share my screen real quick. And hopefully I won't crash the internet when I do this. So let's see if it'll do it. Come on. Here we go. So when he said he does this, so this is a headshot that he took for me. And this is exactly, see, he took it horizontally. This is what you were saying, right, David?
That's exactly right, because anybody that looks at that image can see how you can be cropped out as a portrait style. So you can still keep your shoulders in there and have a vertical image out of that, or you get the nice horizontal effect, or you can crop it to a square for a tighter headshot.
Yeah. And so, so that's what I did is I'll take it and I'll, you know, crop it into this if I need it, when I need it like that. I know we're not really focusing on headshots today, and I'm not trying to do that per se. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want you guys to think about, how are you going to use this image? One of the reasons I happen to know that he does this, here's one he did for me on a white background. So it's on a white slide right now, so it's a little bit hard to see, but this whole area here is all the image right here, okay? And the reason, and you told me in the studio when you shot this one, that you're leaving the negative space, this empty space, you guys, this is called negative space. Same with this one that's outdoors. This is negative space. And these aren't the high res, by the way. I was afraid those would lock up my computer. These are the web image sizes, David, in case you're cringing at the moment. But this negative space allows you on social media to add text, to add links, to add logos and graphics. Same thing on this one here. I've got all this white negative space, right? So I can add that in, or as he said, I can crop it. So think about when you're taking your pictures of your homes, it's not that you would necessarily be doing headshots, but you can, if you take them horizontally and leave yourself some negative space, that allows you to put some copy on the image about an open house, for example, or an address or a website link, and make it into a little ad with the photo as the backdrop. Whereas if you shoot it this way, this is one that he shot vertically. You see, I don't really have any negative space to work with here too much. Does that make sense? David, you want to jump in on that concept at all? And
that's a good point. The obviously the vertical one that you showed, the portrait style, you've got the shoes on. Anybody knows you a shoe person. So it's, you know, it makes sense in that particular case. You got the cool shoes on, and some of those shots, there are times that you're going to need full body shots like that. I do some acting and modeling shots as well as my corporate work. And so there are needs to have the full body. But you made a good point on that white background. When I shoot a lot of people horizontally on the white background, especially speakers and real estate professionals and people that I know can have a message in that negative white space. So I tell people, like a real estate professional that comes to me that I photograph horizontally on white, I can say, hey, you can use this negative space to check out my new listing, or a speaker may say something to the effect of, come hear me speak at such and such. So I try to allow, and then they can still crop it to a square or a vertical.
yeah.
So that's why I think shooting horizontal doesn't mean that it's always going to be the exact right answer. Like this particular shot of you seated, I mean, obviously that's portrait style vertical. And there are times that it makes sense. For example, if you're shooting inside a home and it's got a high ceiling, well, it doesn't make as much sense at that point to shoot horizontal, because if you want to get the fireplace all the way up the wall and really get the effect, you may need to shoot portrait style. So it's not 100% always this is the right answer, but hopefully some of the stuff I shared and some of the reasoning behind it, you know, will help folks.
Yeah. And so on that time of day, what time of day was that? While I take the screen share off and put our videos back on here.
Oh, I'm almost.
Do you happen to remember what time of day we did those?
So my guess is, and the reason I say this is because I've been at this particular location for 6 years, the location that I shot you at. So that's right out in front of our studio. And based on what I see going on, there's one of two things, which this is an opportunity for me to mention something else not related to the sun, or related to the sun and how overcast can be helpful. One of two things. It was most likely in the morning, based on the way I see the lighting going on, and I'm so familiar with that spot. Or it was overcast, and when it's overcast, and I'm not talking about dark like it's going to pour down rain, just a nice soft overcast, I look at that as being a soft box over the sun. So it basically makes the light even no matter where you're at. So when you have an overcast day, now the downside to that is you're not going to have that beautiful blue sky if you're photographing something outside. So your sky is not going to look good. But the outside of the home, or an area, like if you want to get a tighter shot of a bay window or something, you're going to have that nice overcast soft light, and you're not going to have any harshness that the sun is creating. So that's my guess, is it was either in the morning or an overcast day, just based on what I saw. And believe it or not, I didn't know this until earlier. It was, I think, mid 2018. We're coming up on like 2 years.
It was 2018. We are due for a new set, but I'm going to need to lose a few COVID-15, and I'm going to need a haircut before we can shoot anymore. But yes, we do need a new set. But okay, so one thing I want you to talk about your Sun and Moon app here, because guys, lighting is everything. It's everything on these photos. So, you know, again, I don't want to make your job hard or have it take a lot of extra time, but if you can, think about, hey, I'm going to shoot my pictures for my customers of their job site first thing in the morning. That might be worth thinking about, you know, kind of planning it into your day. And anytime light is directly over you coming down, it is not, you're going to be unhappy with how those pictures look. Think about when you're doing selfies indoors. If there is a light straight up over you, it just adds shadows, right, David? It just adds 20 years. It's not good. It's not good.
So the Sun and Moon app, and at any time you want me to dive into the other apps, like some photo editor,
go ahead.
stuff like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's an app called Sun and Moon. That's what it's called. And I'm pretty sure that one's free. I've got another one called Sun Seeker. So the two that I have on my phone are Sun and Moon, and Sun Seeker. And again, I think the Sun Seeker one might be, you can get a paid version. Or so what I did, I was hired by a corporate client. You mentioned some of the names before. So if I mention this corporate client, most people would recognize, especially in the industry that you guys are in, probably everybody on this call would recognize this particular corporate client. But they hired me for a 4-day photo shoot, 2 days in the local area and 2 days in Florida. So what I did was I scoped out with the Sunseeker app, I scoped out the location in advance of the shoot so I could get a feel for where the sun was going to be in order to know the area and how I could, and I even recommended to the client, based on the position of the sun, this is probably when we should be at this location. So that gives you an opportunity, and it's pretty easy to do. I mean, people love apps. So just by having it on there, you can be at the location. If the home's being built, right, there's a whole process it's going through. So just kind of knowing. And the app makes it really nice because based on where you're standing, it will show you and you can get a position. Obviously, avoid noon, but there are times of the day that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've photographed for another corporate client that's well known. And what I did for them is I had already mentioned to you guys earlier, morning light, morning light, morning light. Well, there's not always a right answer, and morning light is not always the right answer. There was a corporate client that I photographed the front of their location for at between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon because the sun was back over behind me projecting onto the front of their building. And so I was able to capitalize on the position of the sun so that it wasn't behind the building in the morning and then the front of the building was in shadow. So that's why the apps are pretty helpful in knowing and just knowing the position of the sun. And so there are times of the day at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that particular situation, the full front, it was a nice sunny day and the full front of their building was very well lit by the sun. I'm going to let you interject before I say anything else, but I'll talk about, a couple of apps. And I saw one of the questions in here about, setting a size of the photos to a default. So I'll kind of, although I don't know that you can do that on the phone, I'm going to talk about how you can do that through the app. So
yeah. All right. One of the things that I've learned the hard way through taking images, taking photos on my phone and being very particular about how they look is the importance of moving your physical body get closer versus using the zoom in, the pinch and zoom with the camera app. I feel like a lot of times our pictures are blurry because people are trying to pinch and zoom in with their camera on their phone, which isn't as good as the zoom on a professional camera.
Correct.
So get yourself, move closer. If you need, I would say if you need to zoom in more than like the little 2x on your phone, then you need to physically get closer. Also, if you need to get down on the ground to get the good angle, get down, like physically move yourself to get yourself in the best position. Would you think that's a...
Oh yeah, you make a very good point. And just so you know, I see a couple of questions from folks in here, and I'll hit some of these things as
we please
continue on. So I've got that opened up on the screen. But with what you were saying, that is a very, very good point. You do not want to do a 10x zoom on your phone if you can avoid it. There is a reason that my main lens that I shoot a lot of stuff with is so big and so heavy. And not cheap because of the glass. And when I zoom with that, I'm getting the same resolution whether I'm up close or at a distance, but there's a reason behind it. So with the phone, you definitely, Meredith, that was some great advice, because I'm in agreement with you there that if you've got to go much beyond, say, 2x, 2 times, you
Yeah.
need to just take 10 steps ahead and close
Yeah.
the gap that
You
way.
just need to get a lot
Right.
closer.
Now, there are
Yeah.
circumstances that you have no choice. We've all, there are times, but for the most part, if you're photographing an inanimate still object like a home, if at all possible, definitely take a few steps closer and don't do the zooming. So that's a very valid point. One of the things, go ahead.
Well, I saw 2 questions here on using filters. What are your thoughts about using filters? And just a little bit more explanation on the Sun and Moon app and how to read the compass part of how that works, if you could, please.
I saw those 2 things, and then I saw one earlier about, you know, the phone thing. So I'll talk about an app, and there's several different apps out there, but I'm going to mention 3, and you can try all 3 of these on your own, and you may have you know, you may have one that you already like, that you already use. I'm just going to mention 3 very quickly. One's called Be Funky, and it's BEFUNKY. It's a photo editor, but it's also a collage. So one of the things that you said, Meredith, about zooming in and getting tighter, well, you could do a 4-up collage that's a square that works great for Instagram, but it worked good for social media anyway. So basically what you can do with Be Funky is just open up the collage feature, tap on 4 images that you've taken, and it pulls them in as a collage. That will help solve a problem of a lower quality image not being the dominant image, because all 4 images will be roughly the same size. And so they're not going to be like so massive that it's like, okay, this is an absolutely horrendous image, because the collage helps take away from that some. The question about, I don't know that, because I don't do a ton of stuff with phone. I mean, the best camera to have is the one that you got with you. So obviously I shoot a lot with my phone, but I don't know every answer there is phone to phone photography. I did see that somebody put in the chat about an iPhone course. Sounds like a great idea. There are likely many photo courses out there and how to take better pictures with your camera on YouTube. Hopefully I'll hit some things that you can take away and then expand upon that. But what I was getting to is I don't know that there's a way to set the phone and all the images are going to be a certain size. By default, most phones are doing a very large file, high resolution, that's print quality. But when you pull it into like that collage deal, you're not going to have that massive file anymore. You pull those 4 images, that collage is not going to be the same massive file that the individual image is. Filters, the one that it's called Photo Editor, and that's exactly what it's called. It's called Photo Editor, and it looks like a sunflower with a bunch of colors around it when you find it. And it's one of many apps out there that has filters. Lightroom, I'm not going to say too much more right now, but Lightroom is a photography platform that my wife, who does the majority of my editing, Caleb does some of it, but my wife does a lot of my editing. She's a huge desktop Lightroom fan, but there's a Lightroom app for your phone. There's the Be Funky app that's great for collages. And there's a photo editor app. Again, you may already have your favorite app, but the person who asked the question about filters, I am a fan of filters because a lot of times you can click a button and it will just enhance the image. And I'm not talking about a filter that makes the image look unreal, that makes it, you know, just look odd or and kind of takes away from what you're trying to accomplish. But a lot of the filters out there, you can just touch a button and that image will go from what I would say good to great. So by just touching a button and utilizing a filter. The Sun and Moon app, what that is, just so you know, it is a pretty easy app to use. The compass, when I open it up and I look at, look at it on here and I look at sun positions. So there's the compass can be a little confusing because that's what it was on when I first opened it up. But when I click over to the left, and I click on sun position, it is pretty easy to understand. So it's definitely not something that is as complicated as some of the things out there. So you can really see the position of the sun based on where you're at. So I think you will find that to be pretty easy. Another one is taking stuff in tight spaces. And I'm a fairly big guy. I'm not 150. I don't really want to say my weight. Maybe it doesn't
No,
show as much.
we're not doing that. No,
And
stop.
I'm not going to say how much I've gained since I've been at home, but getting in tight places, I back up. I mean, I've literally stood. I do commercial photography and I do commercial property some. I don't do a ton of homes, but I have photographed in hotels, for example, and hotel bathrooms are small as well. So I've literally like stood in the tub in a hotel bathroom, like backed in the corner trying to get the shot. So there, you just do the best you can with backing up as far and doing some things that, now, I guess we need to like watch what we recommend to people, because I do some things. I mean, I stand on ladders, I back myself in the corners, I lay on the ground, I do all kinds of things that may not be good recommendations for everybody. So getting those in those tight spots, a lot of times you might have to literally back yourself up as far as you can in the corner and kind of get creative with doing that. I've also found that when you raise, a phone or a camera up and try to raise it high and aim down, that gives you a position. Just think about it. You're going to be, even if you're only 5'2" like my wife, you're still going to be able to get that phone up pretty high, stretched out. Me, I can get it up, well over 7 feet high. And by holding it up like that and shooting down, it gives me a different perspective. It's a unique angle, and it also may allow me to get that tight shot because I can back up in the corner and hold the phone up above my head and point it down.
Yeah. So what I'm wanting you all to take away from this is the idea of, and that's why I wanted David as our expert today, is yes, we're taking photos, but I want you to think like a marketer when you're taking your photos. And I want you to be discerning about the image what does this portray? And if this image makes the room look small, take another one. Get a different angle, move your body, hold the phone. I never thought about holding it up high. That's a fantastic tip. Like, don't expect the device itself to do all the work for you. Move the position you're in, stand on the toilet and shoot down if you have to, stand on the like, be safe, but get very physical in trying to get the best, most open, best possible shot. And remember that really good photos are aspirational. That's what they are. I don't look nearly like I look when he takes photos of me. They're aspirational. And so when people see them, they aspire, they make an impression. And I'm wanting you to understand that even when you're just taking photos of your customers' homes in the process of being built, that is still their new home that they are aspiring to. So when you throw a quick filter on there that adds softness and adds a little romance to the picture, you are adding that aspirational hope feeling to that photo. Photos have feelings and they have emotions. And if I'm on the fence about maybe I want to cancel, or maybe I'm scared because of what's happening right now, but I every week get these really great photos from you of this home, I am more invested. I am more invested. I am more invested. And I can tell you it works because my salesperson with Meredith Homes last year, every week I got photos from him as they built this house. And we so look forward to our Friday photos. And it was a great way of staying involved and staying in communication with us. And it really made me feel special. And so that's where we're coming from today, is think like a marketer. If you look at that photo and it is not appealing, take another one. Two last things, and then we're going to get into our open panel Q&A. So I'll have my other panelists kind of get yourselves ready. We're going to do 2 more points, and then we're going to bring you guys in. One, I do want you to talk about the composition of a photo, David, because we do builder marketing, websites, etc., social media. We see people send us photos for their website that may or may not have been taken professionally, which they should be. And I see dumpsters in the foreground. I see trash piles of lumber. I'm like horrified at what I see in these pictures. So composition is something. And then kind of along those lines, like cropping, right?
Right.
And then I did want to tell them about your video marketing idea that you were doing that I thought was really cool. So talk about composition and cropping for me.
So going back to, this relates to composition and cropping. Collage, I don't know if you use collages, but I think a collage can become your friend for multiple reasons. And so being able to snap a few images, because it gives somebody, rather than one image, they can see 4 or they can see 3. And having that collage is something that allows you to get by with some things compositionally that would be a little more challenging, because you're going to be cropping by using a collage. But outside of the collage, when you're shooting an image in general, so what I run into as a professional photographer when I'm shooting stuff, if I'm there with a client, and so sometimes it's the marketing team with the corporate client, or it might be a director of marketing. So I am there, and a lot of times what people will say is, well, it can be taken out in Photoshop. Well, as a professional, first of all, I know there are a lot of things that, yes, it can be taken out in Photoshop, but is there a need to spend 2 hours trying to do that? So it can be taken out in Photoshop is not always the right answer. So what I try to do is figure out, how can I reposition myself and get in a situation where we're saving maybe a couple of hours in post-production. So what can I do? So one of the things that you want to do is keep in mind, and I see this all the time with people that don't do photography as much. I think one of the things that makes full-time professionals a little better at it is composition and thinking about it. If I see the dumpster in there, then obviously I've got to do something with it. I got to crop it out. I got to edit it out. But here's what to think about. What happens is, whatever the subject is what your attention by default a lot of times gets on. So you've got the home, and you're looking so much at the home that you don't notice the dump truck, the dumpster, the porta potty that's sitting off to the side. So I would just say, slow down for a moment and think about the surroundings, look through there and realize what you're seeing that you're snapping is going to be in there. Now, if you can crop it out, here's another thought for that. Sometimes compositionally, you cannot shoot it without the dumpster being in there. So compose in your mind, am I going to do a square crop for Instagram? Am I going to do a square crop in a collage? How can I crop this image to get my composition? Because sometimes it may be virtually impossible to actually shoot it without the dumpster, without the porta potty. So that's why a phone app that allows you to crop or create a collage is going to be helpful.
It's going to be really helpful. All right. And as I've been telling you guys, he's a really good marketer as well. And when we were doing our town hall interview prep, he was sharing with me, and you can go ahead and, if you have it on your screen and you want to share your screen, David, you can. It's up to you. But he used is it an app or is it software?
So there's
Hippo Video.
There's one called Hippo Video that so Hippo Video, you can just search it online, Hippo Video, and you should find it. But there also is an app for Hippo Video. So here's something to think about, and it's Hippo just like the hippo, because Hippo is the logo for it. But Hippo Video, and what Hippo Video allows you to do, it's an online platform, and it's an app that you can put on your phone. And obviously, if you have an account online, then you can log into the app on your phone. So here's one of the things you can do with Hippo Video. Now, I use different platforms to do some of the things that I do, but I'm almost positive all of this can be done through Hippo. And there's also another app that I'm going to mention. But what Meredith really liked is I created a series of videos for about 80 clients that obviously I got a little more time on my hand than right now. We all do, I think. I mean, obviously we're staying busy, but at the same time, it's like, okay, what can I do differently? So I created about 80 videos in a very short period of time. I'm literally talking like 2 or 3 hours with my webcam, where I basically said, hi, Meredith. This is David Williams. Just wanted to wish you and your family the best. We're all in this together. I didn't say COVID-19. I didn't say coronavirus, but I made it personal. And then I did another video. I got my spiel and I said, hi, Matt. This is David Williams. Blah, blah. And it was a 10-second message and it was personalized. And I sent those videos out through email. And it is just awesome. Now, Hippo Video, you can do it all within there. I recorded through another way, but I used Hippo Video as my platform to host it, because you can grab the link from Hippo Video and drop it into your email, and it embeds it in your email. With the Hippo cell phone app, what you can do is you can record a message. You can look at it. Hi, Meredith, check out your home, and you can turn it around and, you know, show it. You can do a short video and turn the phone around to the home, and then you can stop the video, and via Hippo Video, it will then send a link through email. So they can click on the link and they can see that video, so you can use the app. And there's one other app related to that called Bonjoro, Bonjoro. Again, Bonjoro. Let me tell you something that's interesting. You guys might want to sign up for this one just to see this piece that I'm about to share with you. So Bonjoro, it's a bear. And when you sign up for that, it's free to sign up for. Like a lot of these platforms, you know, they have paid stuff, but I've got the app on my phone. Once you sign up, you're going to get a personalized video from a guy in Australia with an Australian accent that's behind it. And it's not generic, like he's got all Meredith stored up. You know, he said the other day, because I've got a couple of Bonjoro accounts. So basically the message was like, and I think his name is Matt. Hi, David, this is Matt from Australia. Thanks for, you know, signing up with RTP Photo and Video. And it's a personalized message that comes through. But what that app allows you to do, kind of like Hippo Video, is the same type of concept where you record it and it sends it through that system. So you can be personalized, and you can just use your phone. Imagine getting a personalized message, even if it's from a phone, that just says, hi, Meredith, I just wanted you to know I thought about you today. I really appreciate your business. If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know, and have a fantastic weekend ahead if it's close to the weekend. So it was something I did, and I've got a lot of good response from it. So I really enjoyed trying out something new during these times that we're in right now.
Yeah. And that's what I thought that was so incredible. You said you did 80 of those 10-second videos, right? And
Yes.
you sent them to ongoing clients. So he showed me the Hippo Video screenshot of all the little videos that he did. You know, they were 10 seconds long. And I just got to thinking, well, this is something our online sales counselors, our internet people have been doing stuff like that with Bomb video email for years, right? They've been doing that with our leads. But what about on-site agents right now who can't greet people in a model home, sending out 10-second videos saying, hey, we're all in this together? I just think, again, protect your backlog, build your relationships, use the tools you've got. So speaking of using the tools we've got, I've got our full panel up here on the screen. Everybody, please welcome Carrie Mulcrone of Carrie & Co., sales trainer to the new home sales extraordinaire, Matt Riley, Vice President of Group 2, and Angela McKay, ECI Lasso. So hey guys, how you doing?
We're great. Or I'm great. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. All right. We had several folks write in some questions ahead of time, and I want to make sure we get to those first. While we're doing these, we want you guys to write in your additional questions. And so I think this is a good one to start with, is how do we re-engage with people that were really interested before COVID, and they were interested in buying one of our homes, but it's gone a little quiet since. You know, obviously, I mean, Dave and I might advocate like sending them a personalized video or photo, right? What we've been talking about today. But what are some other things, you guys, that somebody could do to try to re-engage? And is there the ability to create any kind of urgency right now, or not so much?
Matt, me or you first?
You go ahead.
Okay. So I always like to have people start where they left off in anything that they do. When they're like, allude to the future, speak to the past, even when they're doing a thank you note. I've done that with people forever. So if you start where you left off by saying, hey guys, you know, last time we were together, and then you kind of start with that, and this is what I think we could do together next, even in these times. So it's re-engagement, but not like, what can I do to help? It's not generic. My thought is start exactly where you left off, and then this hit. And so you just pretend and take that gap away.
Okay. Matt, Angela, you guys want to chime in on that?
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, I completely agree. I think re-engaging, right? So there's two phases of where we are, right? So I think March was a little different. So everyone's still selling houses, and you know, some people are having huge success, and that's been commented on in the Facebook group. I think March looks different than April, meaning that March we were already engaging with people that were already in the pipeline. April, we're going to be engaging with people that maybe not already had that personal interaction, and maybe some that had, but maybe towards the tail end, or maybe we're still working some aged leads. It really depends on, you know, the length of your normal sales cycle, what the buy lead time is. But re-engaging is, you know, understanding when you've already talked through them about what their pain points are, meaning a better term is what's their why behind moving, right? And so I think re-engaging is not just saying, hey, I just wanted to circle back around with you and see how you were doing. Here's a great photo of the house. It's shooting a video. It's talking about something that was impactful for them. So for me, if I'm a salesperson, if I'm a sales manager, if I'm still in the field, I'm going to be going through my list and going, okay, Angela said when she was out here that one of the things that was important to her was having a larger family room and an open kitchen for family gatherings. And so I might go to the house that Angela was interested in, and I might get out my phone and open my BombBomb app or my video app of choice, and I might record a video while I'm in it and say, hey, Angela, I know it's been little bit since you've been out and seen this house. And I know with everybody at home right now, I just wanted to check in with you and see how are things at where you currently live? Or, you know, I wanted to refresh your memory about where, you know, how this particular floor plan lays out, is where you're currently living fitting your needs. And, you know, if you remember, oh, by the way, this house also has that in-home office, right? Maybe point out a couple extra features from some other motivational points that they may be feeling right now with everyone stacked on top of each other. But I think really bringing it back around to and showing them why they initially started that conversation to begin with, because I think that those whys are still there, but now they're enhanced in their current scenario.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's, you know what, it's going back to your notes, as you said, Matt, like looking at your notes as to what was important to them. It's, you know, it's doing away with the canned emails. And I can't believe I'm saying that, right?
Right.
But it really is. It's doing away with those standard templated emails and making it personal. And it is, you've got to bring it back, provide something that is relatable to them.
Mm-hmm. What about, we had a question that came in, Carrie, I think this is kind of up your alley about for the leaders that are on the call, maintaining a culture of accountability, because we're all working remotely, or a lot of folks are. And so it's hard to maintain accountability, but then also you don't want to over micromanage and then kill the morale. So we've got to kind of balance accountability and morale while we're doing all of this. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that that's like a super valuable question. And I think that if sales leaders and salespeople understand that one of the things that we kind of have right now is the luxury of time, in that our minds can wander. We can lose sense of time, like what did I or didn't I get together today? So accountability in today's age, to me, is not like going to the principal's office and what I did do and what I didn't get done. It's, I think people appreciate being held accountable in times like this to help them too. So whatever you did and whatever your distance schedule was, you did one sales meeting a week. Some companies do a full team sales meeting every 2 weeks. Whatever that you did, I would say make it more frequent and make one of them a little more casual, and then have the other one be a little more informative. And when you amp up your amount of interactions with everybody, then basically you're holding each other accountable without holding, your hand to the fire kind of thing. And mix up the messaging in those meetings. What's going on in your life? What's good? Start out with a celebration. I've got a company that we always start out with, tell me something good. And when someone has to work hard to think of something good, it tells you that we need to wrap our arms around each other right now.
Yeah.
I think that, and this is a little bit off topic, but it's on topic in the sense that we have to recognize with our teams that, with all of us, right? We're 99% of us are used to, especially salespeople, we are extroverts, right? And we are used to being around people. And the funny meme that's floating around out there is check on your extroverted friends like they're not okay. But one of the things that we do, I mean, we have a larger team, a group to 25, 26-ish people. And so we still, on Mondays, we have our normal Monday meeting and on Zoom. But one of the things that we've implemented as a group is every Monday morning at 9 a.m., we all get together for like 5 minutes, right? It's just a quick, like Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning, Thursday morning huddle call. And it's simply so we see that face-to-face interaction and we still keep some of that camaraderie going, and people can see what that looks like. And then I will even meet with each different department throughout the day on those teams, and we'll just take 15 minutes and carve out each individual day, and we'll talk about what's happening, whether it's middle of the day, here's what happened at the beginning of the day, here's what our day looks like moving forward, what challenges are you facing, what's come up between the last time that we've talked, how can I help support you? And so I think that, like Carrie, what you were saying is those more frequent touches with our teams and as a leader and with our teams in the field, making sure that that everyone still feels that togetherness and support.
Yeah. We've got a question come in for David, wanting to know, do you think a smartphone is enough for photos for a kind of your average sales agent who's working on site in a community, or do you feel like they need a proper camera?
So
what are your thoughts on that?
Rather than give a super short answer, I want to give a little bit more detailed answer. The quick short answer is I do think a smartphone is good enough. I think smartphones these days, as a general rule, especially the new ones, they keep getting better and better and better with the camera technology. So I think for most on-site agents, a smartphone is going to be fine. One reason that I say that and say there's a little bit longer answer, because when you get into the issue, or is a camera necessary, there becomes when people say, so a question that people come to me about, David, what camera should I buy? Okay.
Yeah.
my first question back is, what kind of budget do you have? Because my camera bag,
of course,
my camera bag just did, I mean, I'm talking about like, you know, I carry it on and throw it on the plane, you know, as a carry-on, it's many thousands of dollars. So if depending on a real camera is nice, you don't have to spend $5,000 on a real camera, but I honestly believe that if you're going to get a real camera, you're probably going to have to drop somewhere between $500 and $1,000. So, do you want to drop $500 to $1,000, or do you want to stay with the smartphone? And again, a smartphone, I think, will suffice for most of the agents, because there's so many things. You can text a message very quickly. You can use the apps. You can do a lot of those things. There's learning curves with a real camera. And what are you going to really haul around that $500 to $1,000 camera with you all the time? Again, the best camera to have is the one that you have with you
in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had a question come in, and we have addressed it, but everything changes every week. So Jason, I'm glad you've asked it again, is on incentives and pricing, and should we be doing those things right now? Should we not? You know, there's definitely different thoughts and opinions on this for probably as many as our panelists on this call and experts on this call. So I will say, as a general rule for me, I've never been a price discounter fan for home builders. I really am not. Now, do our clients do it? Yeah, they do. They do sales events all the time where they lower the base price of an inventory home. And I mean, we've got some running some right now. So, you know, yes, builders do it. That's not particularly my favorite thing, because I think it hurts our ability to build value. And even though you reduced your price, you still may not be the lowest, quote unquote, in the market. And then you're trying to compete on price. And I personally hate competing on price, because there's always somebody below you that makes it harder. So I don't like that. If you're going to do an incentive, I would do with purchase. So, and we have quite a number of clients running those right now. Is it right? Is it wrong? I think you could make both sides of the argument on that. You know, and I think it depends on the market. Like, we've got somebody in Dallas that's competing with national builders. And I mean, you national builders are on the call right now, who are running all kinds of incentives and all kinds of things. And if you're in that market trying to compete with those folks, it's really hard not to run one. I mean, but if you're in a market that's more locally driven and it's not prevalent, please don't be the first one to start it. The day in 2008, the day that I saw a particular national builder put a home discounted $99,000 in Orlando, Florida in a print ad, I knew we were in trouble. Like, we were going down, and that was a problem, right? So I don't even want to think about those days. It gives me a situation. Yeah. You guys want to chime in on that?
That I like to tell builders right now, because everything you said, Meredith, is true. And to go back to, sometimes Matt said this throughout the course of our series, is that it depends, right?
Yeah.
I think that to stay the stay, stand the stand. And what I mean by that is that we have to make people understand that it is different this time. We're not flooded with move-in ready inventory designer homes. We own what they want and what they need. And I think that when we take that stand that we didn't build it any cheaper, why should we sell it any cheaper? There aren't an overabundance of them, that there's just a million reasons to look at it individually. And what I would rather have you see, and Meredith, you know, and Matt, you guys do these same things, is from your marketing arm, work hand in hand with your marketing team, and individually and case by case, make the decision, is this the purchaser for this home? And if it is, what can we do to not necessarily meet in the middle, but to make this a win-win? And it's not an advertised thing. I've kind of gone against the advertised incentives, and I trust salespeople, and it's back pocket money. And you guys know, you're out there, but man, stand tall right now.
Matt, you want to throw your hat in on where you stand on
Oh
this
my gosh.
issue?
Yeah. I
know,
mean,
right?
incentives, it depends. It is not like, it's such a difficult question to answer on a panel like this, because
Yeah, I agree.
are there times where you have to throw a little bit of blood in the water? Yes. Do we want to get into the big incentive and run that race? Because that's a race to the bottom. There's always someone willing to go lower than you, and that is not a race that's worth running, or at least one that's very, very fun at all. But there are times, and I think sometimes it's okay to incentivize people to do an action that you want them to take, right? And maybe in a new world right now of this virtual reality, of virtual showings, maybe it is appropriate to incentivize someone to take virtual tours. And if they buy, maybe they get a $1,500 showroom credit for doing that virtual type experience and continuing to move forward. Because is it worth your $1,500 or whatever that is, right? What is it worth you as a company to incentivize a little bit to continue the pace?
Right.
The answer is sometimes yes. But the other thing is, like, to your point of not lowering the base price, that's a big no-no. You've really got to make sure that you're selling your value and understand what your value proposition is. Builder Online today just published an article that backs up some of the data that what we've been really talking about, which is, there's, as of April 9th, there's a 27% decrease in resales on the market right now. People are pulling their homes off the market because they do not want strangers walking through their home in a COVID-19 area or timeline.
Era.
And so, era, thank you. And so we were already, if you think about March, April of 2019, we were already talking about having suppressed inventory in most markets across the country, and to have 27% less resales on the market is huge. And so what's our value proposition? Especially if you have inventory as a home builder, if you've got inventory homes, spec homes out there, show homes, your value proposition doesn't necessarily have to be that of get $30,000 off. It can be, hey, there's actual inventory here. It's brand new, unlived in, untouched, right? Never before has the stark, naked, empty, unfurnished house looked so darn good.
So good. And that's where I want to bring Angela in on two things and get you to weigh in. Most productive means of communication right now. We had somebody ask, do you think that agents can get a hold of people best through social media, through texting, phone, live chat? I mean, with you guys doing so much, email communication, I figure you might be good to weigh in on that.
I think it's a combination of all of those. Honestly, I think we've seen an increase in everything. We're seeing an increase in email open rates, which is just one indicator of, click-throughs or another thing. You always have to have a call to action, right? There's got to be a purpose. But the open rates I'm noticing with clients, because people have a little more time. They're opening emails. Now, it needs to be relevant. I'm never a proponent of throwing as much, sending everything to everyone. Segment your list, be thoughtful in your communication. But I know chat, we're seeing more activity with chat and with online leads there.
Yes.
We're seeing more engagement with text. There's, it needs to be a combination. It needs to be thoughtful. It needs to be relevant. So whichever medium, it's not always most convenient to you. It's what's most convenient to your prospect, your person.
Yeah. So my other question for you, Angela, was, do you guys have any at ECI? Have you had any builders talk to you? And it's okay if you haven't, on virtual events, virtual open houses. I had several people write in, and honestly, I would love to make this a full topic for us.
Yeah.
But I've got to find some folks that have done one that don't mind sharing what they've learned in it. Have you run across anybody yet that you could?
No, I mean, there's definitely, I've seen some promotions for virtual event. I've seen some email notifications. I've seen some of that. I'm seeing a lot of live, I'm sure I could turn this off, but I haven't, Instagram live notifications and Facebook live notifications. I love seeing that. I really do, because it does stop me in my tracks.
Yeah.
And I am curious. I am interested. I do, I watch them. I'm seeing watch parties for that. I think there's a whole topic there. I mean, we're getting into so many different ways
I know
of marketing, but there's definitely people they're communicating about virtual events. I haven't seen the success rate of them. I don't know if you guys, Matt.
Right.
Carrie?
Matt, if you guys run any virtuals yet?
So we've got some builders right now that are going to be doing virtuals this weekend. That's going to be actual execution, not actual from an official grand opening perspective of like, hey, we're going to have this, like, instead of having the tent outside with the food and the event, it's all done virtually. We haven't had anybody go that direction yet, but definitely continuing to move forward with new neighborhoods and doing the virtual tour, fill in the blank metro name in 30 minutes. I can hit different models. And so those are some of the things that we're seeing folks doing, and some of those are being executed this weekend. So hopefully next week we'll have some success stories. Yeah.
So for next week, my plan is to have a panel of online sales counselors, OSCs, and on-site agents share just what's working for them right now. And I have couple people, awesome people that have agreed. I'm still looking for a couple of you out there. And if you have run a virtual event and you want to talk about that, if you're in the marketing department, you're welcome to, hint, hint. So I'm looking for that, but we will have people straight from the field next week telling you what's working, what's not, and then our awesome panel will be back on to have our broader discussion. David was so amazing to give his time today and answered when I messaged him through LinkedIn with very little information. He replied so positively. If you look in the chat, he mentioned a podcast video project you're working on, HopeNow2020.com. HopeNow2020.com. This is not a pitch or anything to buy. It's just a series of interviews you're doing, David. I'm going to do one with you on Thursday, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's a series of business leader interviews of just kind of what they're doing through this situation. It doesn't particularly mention what we're in, but it's just how to thrive and how to be successful. Any other kind of better promo you want to give it?
Well, if people go to the site, it's not photography related, HopeNow2020.com. There's a videos tab and a podcast tab. And so what I do is I do a recorded Zoom video, put it on YouTube. I strip out the audio, create a podcast so people can listen on an app through Podbean and listen to it. I did 3 of those interviews today. I think I have 5 scheduled on Thursday, and I have several scheduled next week. And I did 5 last week. So there's a lot of content, and it's good stuff. I mean, it's some really good stuff. And so I would say check it out. It's just a project that I started trying to think of how can I give back. And it's not directly, we want to avoid the terminology when we do these interviews, but I figured, hey, got some extra time. I'll do these 80 videos for the clients. I'll start this new website, so hopefully people will find it interesting.
Yeah. So I think the big takeaway from today has been you're in sales, but you can still think like a marketer when you're in sales, and that'll serve you well. And so how can you be more proactive with your communication with your people that are under contract now, people that you were hot before, what broke loose in the last 3 weeks? How can you work with them to deliver more personalized, engaging, visually appealing, and what I really think is what people want right now is hope. How can you deliver that, whether you're doing the videos we talked about last week or sending them a quick photo from your phone this week? Just really take what you're doing and take it up a level. Push yourself, right? Here I am, the most directionally challenged person probably that you'll ever meet, who accepted an invitation to fly 10 hours to Anchorage, Alaska, who's from Orlando, Florida, drive a rental car in a blizzard for 6 days. But yet, I did it, right? I stepped out of the comfort zone. I did the trip. And for some of you, that would be no big deal. For me, this was a huge deal, right? To be by myself and driving and in a blizzard. And then I drove up the side of this mountain and ended up at this place called the Alyeska Ski Resort at the very, very top. And I will post a picture of what I saw when I got up there. And it will be one of the highlights, I'm sure, of my life one day when I look back at the view from the top. And I only saw that view from the top because I was willing to endure the struggle to get myself there and overcome an incredible fear of heights and everything else that I was facing that day. So I'm no hero. I'm just a silly girl trying to figure it out. But what I can tell you is if you will push yourself to be better, do better, and up your game during this time, you will literally be able to do anything you want to do moving forward. And that is a fact. Right, guys?
Right.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys, thank you for joining me. Right, get your picture. The recording will be posted, right, in the right way. The recording will be posted in our Facebook group. If you haven't joined the group, the link is in the chat. That's where the recording will be. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Thank you, David. You were awesome, 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 awesome. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
The doctor ordered.
Right? Yay!